Here. I'm here today to do another Top 10 Tuesday. This week is Valentine's Day. So the theme from the Artsy Reader Girl this week was basically a free week. You could do anything about Valentine's Day, about romance, about anything. So I chose what the theme I created was my top romances in YA literature. I said this before, I don't normally go into books like solely looking for romance. I always need something kind of else to balance it out. But these are just some of my top favorite couples from young adult literature and middle grade literature. There is one middle grade on here. But yeah, I also did talk about them in my blog post and did gush a little bit, but I wanted to gush in person. So the first book we're going to talk about is the Percy Jackson series and the Heroes of Olympus series. This right now I think is gonna be like 3 series that you see these characters, but even back from this series, I love them as a couple. I think that Annabeth is so like in charge and take command, and I really love Annabeth, and I love how her and Percy balance each other. And I really love towards the end of um the Heroes of Olympus series, just like how complicated their relationship became and how much they were willing to sacrifice for each other. But they definitely, I just think Percy's just such a snarky narrator. And to see him trying to like trying to get Annabeth to, you know, just try to get the relationship to work when the world was basically coming to an end is so much fun to go back to and read. And I really just I think that the second series is so much better in regard to their relationship. You also get so many other relationships, and there are so many relationships in this series that I do enjoy, but they are definitely my favorite. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them both in the last book in the Magnus Chase series, but also in the subsequent Rick Riordan series. But overall, I really love Percy and Annabeth. And if you have not read this series, you definitely need to read it. It is definitely a fun adventure, but there is a slow burning romance that is definitely underneath everything that you read in that series, and I hope you will consider checking it out. Sick of hearing me talk about. But I read it last year, and that is Geekerella by Ashley Poston. I read this, I think, in 2 days. My friend Justin really encouraged me to read it, and I wound up meeting her a couple of times, and she's incredible. But I really love this book. I not only love the romance, but I love how this book was structured. Basically follows this girl named Ella who is so deeply in love with this fandom called the Starfield movie, and she winds up going to a con that her dad started, and there is a movie that is being filmed, and Darian Freeman got cast as the lead character, and she is really not that impressed with him as an actor to play this part. But through a series of they start communicating, and it kind of turns into this whole long thing. It's definitely a Cinderella retelling, but I think it's probably my favorite Cinderella retelling that I ever read. I love the fandom elements. I love how they both had very specific journeys that was not about the romance, but their romance was adorable. I so want to reread this. I think I'm probably might actually try to re-listen to it this summer because it was so much fun. I laughed, I cried. It has a little wiener dog in it, which you know how I feel about dogs in novels. As long as they don't die, I'm really good about that. Um, but yeah, I really love this book so much, and I cannot say enough good things about it. If you're looking for kind of a fun contemporary with a little bit more heart, but definitely elements of a Cinderella retelling, this is good, and it really turns the Cinderella retelling on its head, and I really enjoyed that. But I definitely love their romance. They are definitely one of my top contemporary couples. You will see a few more later in this haul from Stephanie Perkins or this video from Stephanie Perkins and Katie McGarry. But this couple definitely tops my list. And if you have not read it, go out and read it because it's a really good read, especially for Valentine's. Temporary. And again, I have talked about this book so much, but it is Lola and the Boy Next Door by Stephanie Perkins. This is part of her, I don't think the series really has a name, but Anna and the French Kiss series. I will admit, I do love Anna. I really did like Isla, but this book took the cake. I think I've listened to this book twice, read it twice. I love this book so much. I love Lola. I love Cricket. I think Cricket is like the perfect book boyfriend. But I really love in novels when both and you don't even get Cricket's point of view in this book, which makes it sometimes hard to show that he has a journey too. But I felt like you really saw that in Cricket's journey in this book, and I really liked it. I love Lola's journey, and I love how it dealt with harder issues. There's, two gay dads in the story, and I just loved it. I really liked it, and I think I really felt felt so much love and affection for Lola, and I know that this book is not as well received as the other two, but she is personally my favorite, and I was so excited to meet Stephanie Perkins late last year. But I really, really love this book. And if you have not read Lola, I highly recommend you read it. There is a figure skating component, which, again, I would love figure skating. I'm so excited that it's the Winter Olympics. I'm definitely going to be checking out some skating tonight. But I really loved it. And listening to this audiobook always makes me smile. So if I'm ever having a crappy time in my life, I will either listen to this or Dare You To by Katie McGarry, which is coming up later. But yeah, definitely, really, really like this book. I love the whole series. I really did like Anna and the French Kiss, but I really, really love Lola and the Boy Next Door. Temporary to give you some fantasy and science fiction romances that I really adored. The first one is, I think I've talked about this a few times too, but this is Cress by Marissa Meyer, which is the third book in the Lunar Chronicle series, and I love Cress. Cress is not normally my favorite. Rapunzel is not normally my favorite Disney princess. I'm definitely more. When I went into this series, I really thought I was going to love Scarlet the most. And I do like Scarlet, but I love Cress and Thorn. I really, really want to reread this book so much. And I actually might do it. I've been on a reread kick, and I might actually do a video eventually about like the books that I do want to reread or the series that I want to reread. That's actually not a bad idea. So maybe I will add that to my TBR plans or my video plans. But yeah, so I love this book so much. I love Cress so much, and I just love Thorn. Thorn you see in all of the stories, but it's not until he gets in this book that you see how sweet and his sensitive side, and how he really takes care of Cress, and how Cress really comes out of her own. And Cress became so badass in this book, and I love her in Winter too, but I think that these two finding each other and their relationship really changed how they saw the world, and I was just so invested in this story. I love all the romances in the story, but this is definitely my like top favorite, and I really love how Marissa Meyer crafts a romance. She does a really, really good job, and sometimes they break your heart, and sometimes they make you smile, and this one definitely made me smile. So yeah, that's my thoughts about Cress. If you have not read this series, it is the perfect science fiction version of like fairy tale retellings. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So if you're considering checking out the Lunatic Chronicles, definitely do it so you can meet Cinder, Scarlet, Winter, but especially Cress and Thorn. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Cress. To talk about is literally not a surprise to anyone, but it is the reason that I love slow burn romances, and that is Ron and Hermione from Harry Potter. And it's funny when people tell me like, "Oh my god, I've had to wait a book for a couple to get together." That is horrible. I almost laugh because I've had to wait until the last pages in this book to see them get together. So I know what a long wait is, and it was like over the course of 10 years I waited for the end of this series. But I love Ron Hermione. They have probably the best meeting ever, and they have some of the favorite interactions ever. I'm actually in the middle of reading 6, which is where you see the actual actions that lead to their romance towards book 7. But overall, I love this couple so much. When a couple of years ago, J.K. Rowling announced, "Oh, you know what? I don't know if Ron and Hermione were perfect together." I just was like, I was so offended. I was like, no. Just because, no, I was very, very offended. That's her opinion, and of course the other is entitled to her opinion, but Ron and Hermione were made for each other. I never really saw Harry and Hermione as more than just friends, but I love the balance between them. I'm so excited. Cursed Child wasn't my favorite, but I am excited to see them on stage because we do get the original cast in a couple of months. I will definitely be doing a video about that. May even try to blog it a little bit. But this is one of the romances that really shaped my childhood. I read this from when I was 4th grade to a college freshman, which is a big part of my life. But I was always a Ron and Hermione fan, and I'm still a Ron and Hermione fan. To this point, I have 6 Funko figures of Ron and Hermione because they are definitely my favorites. But yeah, I really, really love this couple. And if for some reason you have not read Harry Potter or like watched the movies, Sarah, this does not include you because you're working on it. Sorry for the minor spoilers if you're watching this. But yeah, so definitely check out Harry Potter. I love this romance so much. If you're a Harry and Hermione fan, I would love to see your logic just because I've never saw them as romantic in any way. I know that there were instances in the book series, but Ron and Hermione, one of the best meetings ever, and some of those scenes, like in book one when they're dealing with the devil's snare and she's like, oh my god, I can't light a match, and Ron yells back, are you a witch or not? Probably one of the best scenes that I still laugh every single time I read it. But they are definitely one of my top favorite couples in all of YA literature. Yeah, so definitely Ron and Hermione from Harry Potter. Not a surprise to anybody. It is Simon and Izzy from the Shadowhunter series, and this is definitely another romance that took a while. I say we kind of met it and got to it in book 3, but I really love them, and it was so important to me that Simon be happy, and these are all the books, obviously, but it was so important, and I just love Izzy. Izzy's so kick-ass and kick-butt. I'm actually rereading Tales of the Shadowhunter Academy right now, so I can finally read this book. It's massive, so check out my massive books I want to read video. But yeah, so I'm super excited. I always loved Simon as a character, and it was super important to me that he have someone in his life, and Isabel is just amazing. I love Isabel so much, and I really, really love their relationship. I've talked about this so many different times in so many different videos, but Isabel and Simon are definitely the highlight of the Shadowhunter series, closely behind Magnus and Alec, but really I love Izzy and Simon. Malik was there the whole entire time, but Izzy and Simon definitely is a strong contender for my favorite romance in that entire series. If you have not read, I still can't read book 1 and 2, but I just finished a reread of book 3 through 5, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, so overall, those are my thoughts about why I love Izzy and Simon so much. But I don't talk about much in reference to the romance, but definitely in first to the format, and I will actually be reading this book next month or re-listening, and it's Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. Hannah and Nick have definitely become one of my most favorite couples that deal with really tragic and horrible situations and still wind up, relating and connecting and being a part of each other's life, and I like them so much, and I think that the end of the book is definitely an emotional gut punch, but I really did like them throughout the entire story, and I'm so excited to see how this story winds up. As I talked about previously, the signing for Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff in March is probably one of the last signings I'm going to go to for a while. There is one more or two more I might go to, but I'm really going to try to be good with my book buying, but that one has to get bought so I can get them all signed to me. But yeah, I'm definitely super excited to reread the series and see how the story completes, but they are definitely one of my favorite couples in that series. I did really, really love Ezra and Caddy as well, so if this book was longer, I would also throw them onto this list. But overall, I really, really love these couples, and I'm so excited to re-listen to the stories and then move on and read the conclusion. Barry is probably my favorite author, definitely my favorite contemporary author. So the next 3 couples are all from her. So the first one is no shock to anyone. It is Dare You To by Katie McGarry, which is the second book in the Pushing the Limits series. I love Beth and Ryan so much. I've talked about them so much. But again, I love Katie McGarry because you always get dual perspectives, so you get to see both their characters. But I felt like they had such a strong self-discovery path, and their romance just was like, oh, so good. And sometimes when you have books like this where the girl comes from tragic situations and the boy, is very, very strong-willed, it can get a little bit abusive or a little bit controlling. And I never felt that way with Ryan. I felt like he really just wanted to support Beth, and Beth was super self-contained or super by herself. So breaking down her walls took a lot of time, but I never felt like Ryan was abusive or controlling. Not that I think Beth would have stood for that, but I think that I just love the dynamics of their relationship so much. And that's why I don't really normally read a lot of contemporary literature, just because sometimes the controlling boyfriend comes across as being so sweet, and I really have issues with that. But this is not the case in this book at all, and I love it so much. So if you have not checked out the series, I highly recommend. It's definitely a more emotional set of contemporaries, which is anything that Katie McGarry writes, but I really did like it, and their romance is to just die for. I really, really love it, and I squeal, and every single time I listen to this, I laugh and I cry, because Beth's story is so heartbreaking at the start of this, but to see where she winds up. And if you are a big fan and you have not read your Happily Ever After yet, I have your eNovella. that you got when you pre-ordered her new book, you need to read it because it really, really wraps up all the characters in such a nice way, and it made me cry. So, but definitely, definitely love Beth and Ryan so much. And you have to read the E novella because a lot of stuff is revealed. So get on that. Also by Katie McGarry, and it is the last book in her Pushing the Limit series. As of now, they just literally did a whole wrap up with like a happily ever after, so I don't know if we're going to be getting any more. I would love more from these characters, but definitely Chasing the Impossible with Logan and Abby is probably one of my second favorite books by Katie. A contemporary set, there's always two characters that you just want their story so badly. And we met Logan in book 2 and we met Abby in book 1. So since book 1, I've wanted someone for this girl. And the minute I met Logan, I was like, oh, there's something there. But this book, I went into it really excited for it. But by the end, I was totally floored by it. It made me cry. I was so emotionally vested in these characters. I love this book so much. So much so that I had to buy an ebook on my Kindle, even though I had a free copy because I pre-ordered Take Me On, I think. Or no, not Take Me On. One of the books I pre-ordered. I forgot which one it was. And you got this like a free novel if you order that. But oh my god, it was so good. I definitely need to reread this book next year. It's not on Audible, so I actually will have to physically reread it, which I don't mind. But I really one day hope that they make it an audiobook because I love re-listening to her books. But yeah, if you have not checked out Chasing the Impossible by Katie McGarry, I don't know what you're doing with your life. It would be a great Valentine's Day read. I would recommend you at least read like a couple of books before it because these books really do build on each other. That's why I think that it's such a slow burn romance over the course of like the entire series. But yeah, I definitely love this book so much. It is definitely one of my top contemporaries I read that year, but I still love it so much. And I really loved how they ended their story in the epilogue as well. So those are my thoughts on Chasing the Impossible by Katie McGarry. That is going to round out my top romances for Valentine's Day. For this video is Chevy and Violet from Long Way Home by Katie McGarry, the last book in the Thunder Road series. Romances dealing with hard issues. I also like Rekindled Romance, which is also what Lola and the Boy Next Door was because Cricket and Lola had been friends before. But this book was definitely a rekindled romance story, and you've been hearing about Chevy and Violet for the entire series, and finally we actually got their story. Loved it. Definitely my favorite book in that series. Razor and Brenna are a close second, but I really love these characters. I love both their pathways, and I loved how they handled all the stuff with the motorcycle gang and how they really charred their own past. I thought that it was a very difficult novel, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I was so happy to see them in the epilogue. The way that the epilogue worked is that there was like 6 stories told from a couple of chapters told from the Thunder Road world and a couple of chapters told from the Pushing the Limits world, and it was a nice conclusion, but I definitely was so happy to see Chevy and Violet again, and it was just so much fun to read. But they're definitely my favorite in that series, and I'm so excited to see what Katie McGarry writes next. Say You Will Remember Me is definitely going to be a book that I read this month, and I will definitely give you guys my thoughts about it. But overall, those are my top romances that I love when I consider Valentine's Day. Let me know in the comments what are some of your top romances, literature, and if I should check any of them out. I hope you guys are having a great day, and I hope you guys have a great Valentine's Day. I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye!